We are live. All right. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you guys joining us. This is breaking news. Not yet quite confirmed, of course, but it's quite exciting. What we're going to talk about today is this possibility that Tesla shareholders might actually get XAI shares. So, this is something that's been happening because about what is it now? A few days ago, 3 days ago, Elon Musk tweeted out. Let me share that tweet here that X Corp investors, people who are invested in X, which is Twitter, will own 25% of XAI. So this is just a few days ago. So when he did that, obviously many of us were starting to talk and trying to ask the question, why is it that Tesla shareholders aren't having an ownership of XAI? So of course, I filmed an episode with Cyberbulls yesterday at 3:00 in the Pacific time. And that's when I actually said at that point, this is going to be a big discussion for you and me, Brian, because it's not only about Tesla shareholders getting access, but this is about a war, an AI war between Tesla, Microsoft, and Google, and maybe others. But at this point, it's very clear that this race to general AI is going to be made only by people that have companies that have massive amounts of money. Microsoft has already announced that they're going to invest $50 billion per year. You need the data centers, you need the compute, you need the people, you need the electricity to be able to power this. And you need the data. So let's talk about that. Anyways, welcome. I'm Herbert from Brighter with Herbert, and this is Brian from My Tesla Weekend, and we're doing a co-stream.
Howdy, guys. So yeah, XAI, they have made it clear that apparently going public is a thing that may happen and may happen soon. That X Corp holding shareholders, just to reiterate, may be seeing some equity from that, which would make some sense, I suppose. And then the question becomes, who gets in on it and how and when? And my question at that point would be about the legality behind it. And really, like you said, who are the leaders? We've got your Googles and your Microsofts and all those. But there's a lot of names out there. In the chat, drop some names for us who you guys think the leaders are. Who are the ones to watch? Who's gonna crack a general AI first? And what does it all mean?
Well, it's boiled down, right? At this point, but the debacle with OpenAI that happened over the weekend. Now, OpenAI happened to just announce this morning that they're back on board. Sam Altman is back, the CEO. Greg Brockman is back there. Don't know what happened to Ilya. He's probably there, but they made whole. They're back into their own OpenAI. But having said that, it's still very clear at this point that it's no longer a nonprofit, right? They're going to become a for-profit company, and it's going to be a battle between who has enough money. With Microsoft backing OpenAI with $50 billion, here's my prediction. My prediction is that Tesla, Elon, it's not enough what he's doing. It's not enough to just have XAI and X and Tesla. He needs to raise $50 billion, $100 billion. And so yesterday we were having this discussion with a number of my Cyberbulls friends, and this is a war. Like I said, you need this money. So let's cover a little bit of the history of how we got here. But my point to you, Brian, is that this is now a private companies who are going to do this, and there really is just a handful.
And I'm going to before we get to that history, I would like to say, while Microsoft needs 50 billion, XAI doesn't. Anything Elon does doesn't need it, because a lot of that 50 billion was going to be in recruiting bonuses to get people to work.
No,
okay,
Brian.
okay.
The 50 billion is on data centers. Yes, you need massive data centers. The bigger the data centers, it's a race to compute at this point. Do you know that somebody told me this, and I'm trying to confirm it? The second largest buyer of NVIDIA chips is XAI.
Is XAI.
XAI. Now, how did that happen? Is this true? And it's possible that Elon made a phone call. Elon planned ahead. They went and started buying things, but they've got a close relationship with NVIDIA. The point is that, yes, he's planning ahead, but this is like, you need more money than what we've got today. This is, the bigger the data centers, the more chips you have, that's who's going to win the race to AGI. AGI is every profession in the world can be deal with this. So anyways, I just say, I'm telling you that this is a race between 2 or 3 entities. And in order for Tesla to stay in the game, they need to raise money. and they need to combine, not like a acquisition or anything like that, but they need to make it much more clear the relationship between at least these three corporations, xai, and Tesla. And it's fantastic, right? Because you, as we go through this, it has everything. X is all the data. XAI will have the people and the algorithms, but Tesla will have FSD, the algorithm, the data centers, the energy. They'll be able to combine all of that, which just makes sense. So let's just walk through. So first of all, yesterday I started having discussion on a Twitter X space, and we started having this, just really higher level discussion. Then we recorded this little clip, and I'm going to play a little bit about it. It's me talking about this. It's just a little bit more articulated than I'm saying now. And then from there, I'll walk through what happened next with the tweets from Dave Lee, from Jason DeBolt, and then how Elon Musk replied to that. So let's watch this. Here's what I'm thinking is happening. Okay, so obviously Tesla is got its plan. It's got its master plan. Elon started XAI 5 months ago, and he initially was intending it for it to be within Tesla, but then he couldn't recruit anybody who didn't want to work for a big corporation. They wanted to have shares in a small company. So he did that. So that's the board. Tesla's board needs to be very clear of how XAI, and then he bought X, which happened like a year ago now, and now Tesla. How do they, like you said, work together? He's got to clarify that. And so this has now become AI. This is probably bigger than energy, bigger than cars, bigger than robots even. It's possible.
And where is Dojo? Because that's where it's happening.
Where's Dojo, which is the data warehouse, the chips, and the compute, and then the power that they need is all in Tesla, right? The solar energy, the batteries that they need to run these data centers. And so there's this bigger play now. Tesla's not just a car company, not just a robot company, which is weird, right? It's like the biggest thing. And AI company is bigger than all those. And so Tesla's board needs to think bigger and kind of like, how do you connect these three companies that Elon owns? So let me pause it there, Brian. Any comments on what I was saying there? This is yesterday.
This is just yesterday. That's the thing with the AI spaces. It moves so quickly. You're right on all accounts. Right on all accounts. The crazy thing I was just thinking was how much of NVIDIA's monster quarter was Elon directly responsible for between, we know the purchases they did for Tesla for their compute train. Now we're finding out that XAI is right up there with it. This is a lot of compute.
Yeah, yesterday NVIDIA reported their results and they were 2 billions higher, 18 billion instead of 16 billion. And so I was asking the question, where did that 2 billion? It all came from data center. And so somebody bought more than they were expecting because it was higher than their forecast. So let's just walk people through the steps here. So this is what happened. A few days ago, Elon tweeted out X Corp investors, people who invest in the old Twitter, will own 25% of XAI. They provide the data that the real-time data that powers Grok, and Grok is right away one of the it's kind of a leading contender for generative large language model. It's looking like it's working really, really well, but it's got real time. That's the big difference that no one else can capture. So then I did my show yesterday. I said that, and then Dave Lee, same thinking. A few hours later, he said this. He tweeted this out. I'd like to see a partnership between Tesla and XAI. Tesla provides a monetary investment into XAI, as well as Dojo compute resources going forward. So a monetary investment into XAI. That one I got to think through. Why should Tesla invest into XAI? As well as Dojo compute for sure. Dojo, hardware, AI, all sorts of things to give to them. XAI gives Tesla some equity. I guess the point is that they need to buy the equity. Gives Tesla some equity and access to Grok AI going forward. So the Grok AI will allow Tesla's cars. You can communicate back and forth with the car. You can do the same thing with a bot. It really is the missing piece. And then goes, what do you think, Elon? Now, Jason DeBolt replies and says, I'm 100% behind this. Many Tesla retail investors would love to have some skin in the game with XAI. I hope Elon considers this proposal. Now, the beautiful thing is Elon this morning replied to Jason saying, we'll discuss with the board. So this is my point exactly, right? My point was that when he tweeted that out saying that, X Corp invest shareholders will get access to XAI, he already knew that Tesla is going to do the same thing, but he can't just say it because he owns X, he owns XAI, but he doesn't own Tesla. Like he owns, a big portion of it, but he doesn't, it's like 14% at the max of shareholders. So he needs to get board approval for something like this, and that's why it's happening. So I was already saying, A, it needs to happen. Everybody will be co-share owners. But B, this has to be bigger. This has to be bigger than just what we're seeing now. You can't just have the three companies alone. He's going to need to raise money. I'm saying that he needs to find friends, which he has, right? He can get big pockets out there, and they need to raise 50 billion. I'm not thinking that they're going to sell Tesla stock or anything like that, but it needs to happen in order to compete. And so, in fact, if anything, Tesla will be the beneficiary because he needs to raise up 50 billion. Then they need to buy Tesla Dojo as a service, 50 billion's worth.
So I had always wondered, why do companies sometimes keep it within the brand or within the corporation, and why do they sometimes not? And in the case of XAI, it appears as though the people they were recruiting. They wanted the best people. If they had put it inside of Tesla, like you said, those engineers would look at it and say, "Great, I'm going to get all this stock, but I don't see another 20 or 200x coming from Tesla. 200x, come on." Even the hyperbulls among us will agree that that's a little outlandish. Uh, but those same engineers who went to work for Microsoft, they don't see a 200x. They're not going to go there. And
No.
then you've got the question, right? So then the question is, well, why not just roll them into X in the first place? And I think the answer there is some people are of the opinion, including Elon himself, that perhaps X valuation at the moment might be a little too high. Uh, the he may have overpaid.
Yeah. Yep.
But by starting with XAI, they're getting in at $1 a share or whatever the pre-IPO price is,
Yep.
and then so then the question is, and we've seen this with Starlink, where when the notion that Starlink would be IPO'd or SpaceX itself at one point would be IPO'd, people had said, well, do Tesla investors get first crack at it? And my answer was always no, because they have a responsibility to the shareholders that are already there, to the people who brought in real dollars when the risk was extreme. And those shareholders need maximum return. They deserve it. They took this astronomical risk, haha, and they decided that they would. So giving money away to Tesla investors who had no skin in the game would be kind of crazy, kind of backwards. But with this, it's kind of a different matter because uh, the whole point with X and with XAI and with kind of everything moving forward is we know it's an ecosystem. We know
Yeah.
that there are shared. We know that Tesla engineers have helped X. We know that. That was Elon said it. We grabbed some of our best engineers and dragged them across the bay to get Twitter at the time running. So Tesla investors kind of deserve something. And if the deal is Tesla puts in a small amount of money, a billion, uh, and in exchange gets a big chunk that's likely to be worth 5 or 20 billion in not too long, that kind of makes sense. What do you think of that?
I don't, yeah, first of all, good points. I don't think Tesla needs to put in money. I think they can just, that's why I was hesitating there. I think they can just say, hey, we're going to provide you the data centers, the Dojo supercomputers in exchange for share ownership. Um, cash flowing maybe. But the idea that XAI is a small corporation that needs to attract the smartest minds in the world is brilliant, and that's why he was forced to do it. Elon initially was going to do hire them in Tesla because the AI division is in Tesla, but just like you said, it makes more sense for an engineer. That's why when OpenAI kind of like had this opportunity to be within Microsoft and then build out that division, they preferred to go back and start, stay in a small company because, but this time I bet you that OpenAI is going to be a for profit now. Forget this stupid nonprofit scenario. So that they can all, make bank and attract the smartest minds in the world is what you're saying, which makes sense. So if you think about it, Tesla is so well positioned, right? Like Elon, just perfectly positioned. If you think about XAI, and Tesla, X is the data, the real time data that few, and he shut down the because all the other AI companies were grabbing and taking the data from Twitter. He shut that down about 6 months, 8 months. As soon as he bought the company, he shut it down immediately. Then you got XAI, attracts all the smartest minds in the world. They're creating Grok. Then you take Grok, and then you've got the Tesla real-time AI, vision-based AI. Combine them together, and then you've got this situation. But listen, I'm thinking this is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. So you know this, and I did not know this, that Sam Altman owns apparently over 90+% of this new company that came out that had that pin. You put the pin on your chest and you talk to it. And basically, and now OpenAI, ChatGPT just released the voice, basically talking to it. It's just think Star Trek, right? They got the pin on Star Trek and you're talking to the computer. And then you can ask it any question. You can get answers immediately. You don't need to go to Google to search anything anymore. You're just going to say the question. It's going to verbally reply back to you. He owns 90+% apparently of that company. So I'm telling you that Tesla needs it, and I'm sure Elon is thinking bigger. This isn't just, oh, I'm going to take Grok, put it into the car, put it into the robot. This is going to be, we need something similar to what he's talking about and how he'll decide to approach it. I'm not saying that the pin is the right approach. I'm just thinking that, you need some instant communication. And so he's already thinking that it needs to be Neuralink, right? Embedded in there, but in between Neuralink, you need something that's going to just wipe out smartphones. And he's already said smartphone is very slow, pecking to the smartphone. And so voice is probably the closest to that next. Yeah.
Interesting. And when you're looking at partners for your AI company, one that you do look for is somebody who has just raw data, just sheer data. And in the case of language, X is a great example of lots of language, lots of text in many languages. But what Tesla brings uniquely in the world is physics, data on how the world operates outside. It brings meat space in ways that other companies can't. Nobody has the sheer depth of vision training, like you were saying, as Tesla, and that's surely worth money because that's not something you can just go out and scrape.
No, it's worth more.
To see, it's worth more. It's worth, and nobody has it. You could argue that Waymo or Cruise have it in 3 cities. They have richer
bots.
data on what the streets look like in a small part of a couple big cities, and that's it. But Tesla's got it everywhere.
Okay, let me repeat what we just said just very quickly to catch up the people who just joined. But basically, there is news this morning that Elon Musk is going to be talking to the Tesla board to discuss whether or not Tesla shareholders should have share ownership or a piece of the pie of XAI, which is the maker of Grok, and it's their generative AI company. So if you kind of started off just 3 days ago, Elon tweeted this out. He said, X Corp investors, so investors in X, which is the previous Twitter, which is almost all him, right? Except for the people that pushed forward from the people that own Twitter. They're going to own 25% of XAI. First of all, that's a huge amount of money. I think a huge portion of XAI. Okay. So then, of course, we Tesla shareholders are asking, what about us? What shouldn't we have it? And so that's where I did a space yesterday, and we started talking about this and realized that Elon can make this announcement today or 3 days ago because he owns X, he owns XAI, but he doesn't own 100% of Tesla. So he needs to ask Tesla board. We were talking about this already, and actually thinking bigger that Tesla needs to not just have ownership of XAI. They need to compete with Microsoft, who's already announced they're going to invest $50 billion per year. Then you got OpenAI. So then Dave Lee sent this note out last night. I'd like to see a partnership between Tesla and XAI. Tesla provides monetary investment into XAI as well as Dojo. XAI gives Tesla some equity and access to Grok AI going forward. What do you think, Elon? Jason says, I'm 100% behind this. Tesla retail investors would love to have skin in the game with XAI. I hope Elon considers the proposal. And then this morning, Elon said, we'll discuss with the Tesla board. So he confirmed that this is basically, gonna happen.
Right.
It's gonna happen.
Well,
So I'm gonna play.
it's certainly possible.
I'm gonna go ahead and play just the continuation of this conversation I had with the cyber bulls, which we recorded yesterday before these tweets came out and before the Elon's confirmation.
Well, I'm actually wondering whether we're not missing a board member that is AI specific. Now we have the current board. I look at them very closely. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, but we have a quite diversified board, which is good. We have somebody from media, we have somebody from finance, we have somebody from personnel. So there is, and obviously there are a couple of venture capitalists in there, but I think we're missing a key person who really has a vision on AI at the moment on the board. So that maybe there's a recruitment coming.
I agree with that. The other thing I'll say as a shareholder is that Tesla shareholders have funded a lot of stuff.
Oh, my bag was there, and yours too. I can tell you, we were holding them.
So I really think, and Elon has said that he is going to make this right for Tesla shareholders. Again, not if you look at it over the long time horizon, if you've been in it forever. Again, this is the thing. You talk to Tesla shareholders. Well, you have a 10-year horizon. Well, what if you've been in it for 10 or 11 years? So
look at me.
Yeah. No. So I mean, with everything that's X has been funded, XAI has been funded, all these different things. And you can say like Elon's doing this with the money that he's made, from his compensation plan. But also there's Tesla resources, there's people, there's the servers, there's Dojo. Like, where's all this stuff going to reside? That's powering basically the brain of X. And it'd be great to hear about it at the next shareholders meeting.
Yeah, I agree.
I just suggest Tesla offer like $10 billion, and then get all the IP, and then the CEO gets oh wait, that's a different company.
I got a theory.
No, don't even go there.
Alexandra, I have a theory. My theories usually turn out right. So Elon just announced very recently that X investors get 25% of XAI. The reason he didn't announce Tesla is because he needs Tesla's board to approve it. He is able to announce that because he owns X and he owns XAI. He needs Tesla, and now this is gonna happen. This will happen. What do you think? He just needs to have the board final approval.
I think it will be part of a bigger plan. We discussed this a little bit in the space. While if I look only at current, don't take the only literal, but if I look at only the current plans that we all knew for Tesla, maybe opening India, Mexico, and all that, the current cash situation was sufficient. We've had this discussion a lot of time. Last year 2023, free cash flow was difficult, first, second, and third trimester, but we're still sitting on $26 billion of cash. So that is enough to continue the next couple of months exactly, with the rhythm they want to do. They may want to accelerate or not, that's fine. But if at the same time you want to ramp up Dojo, you want to invest in XAI, you want to, really play big cards now, you may need to do a capital raise. And the numbers I had proposed was 30 billion. Larry Goldberg earlier said 50 billion. This is consequential money. This is where the board has to come in and be convinced. That's why I just said earlier, we may be missing this AI person that has this vision, right? I'm sure Elon can convey it to them, but it's just much better when you have an independent person that gives you that as well. If we have that money, if there is this capital raise, that would mean we'd go from 26 to 56 or 66 or 86 billion. Then these investments can be made. And yes, then you're completely right. Then we can suddenly play big game.
Okay, it all comes together now. It all makes sense now. So when Elon said at the earnings call that we need to slow down in Giga Mexico because of potential recession, that is true, right? That's absolutely true. But it's all kind of a little bit exaggerated because they're continuing to invest heavily in Dojo, $2 billion
Of course, that's
every
what
year.
they did.
They need to invest more. And so part of the reason why they don't want to invest so much on a new factory is where they need to invest in. This is a war. This is a race. I was just saying this recently. Microsoft announced they're going to be spending $50 billion in 2024. And they're going to spend another $50 billion ongoing per year. So Tesla needs to rise up in order to fight these, you got the Google, you got the Microsoft, and now you got Tesla. They need to raise $50 billion to be able to compete. Data centers, employees, chips, algorithms, make it happen. So,
and Nicolas will never believe this because he announced these amounts. I think he announced 20 billion to you, right? When he talked about a capital raise, when you had
Nicholas
Colas, yes,
Colas, yes, he said 20 billion, but that's only
that's
just
for cars.
auto business.
Exactly. If now this really happens for 50 and it has nothing to do with cars, the irony.
Okay, so that was a clip from a recording we did yesterday, and this is just reporting now that Elon actually confirmed that they're going to discuss it with the board. What's your thoughts, Brian?
So my first question is, so I got two questions on that, a bunch of thoughts. So I don't know who they would get for the board to handle the AI side. Maybe that's something we can discuss. But the money itself, what's it for? What's it for? I know you would need compute, of course, a lot of it, but 50 billion is an awfully big pile of cash. You wouldn't need it for recruitment the way some other companies would, the way Tesla might, because Tesla's stock is already at a point where you're not going to see 100x out of it, realistically. So what is the cost? I mean, how much compute is needed to actually accomplish these goals? Because if you look at somebody like Google, they've got their data centers can just be training in the background with any surplus time. The way people would set up a SETI at home thing to run when they're not at their computer, when it's not peak time, Google can be already doing their compute.
Yeah. Did you see? I'm going to try to pull it up now while we're talking. Yesterday, Andrej Karpathy posted a tweet that says, "I've been thinking a lot about decentralized versus centralized." And Elon replies and says, "Same." Yeah. And then I did a show with Brian Wang, who did a whole show showing that the compute that's sitting in all of our cars we will be paid. Tesla car owners will be paid by Tesla to have access to that for running Dojo supercomputer as a service. And he was calculating how much we might make. It's going to be sub $2,000 a year, but it could be hundreds. But the combination of all the chips that are already in the cars is significant. But to answer your question, it's going to be data centers. It's going to be chips. An NVIDIA chip is $40,000. and you need by millions of them. And then the bigger the data center, the more the compute, the more powerful. It's a race to AGI. And it's not just AGI for like one thing, right? It's like for everything, like to be the smartest, doctor in the world, the smartest lawyer in the world, the smartest, whatever, every single job that humans do, it can learn. And then this new thing that that ChatGPT can apparently do in ChatGPT 5, this is a very incredible developer, or technical language. He explained it all. But what he said is that what possibly has happened is that ChatGPT 5 can now ask its own questions to itself and find the answers to the questions it doesn't know. That's the new thing. So human asks a query, it goes and finds the answer, provides it. Now it can just decide on its own to go and ask its own questions and find the answers and dig through and find itself. And so now it's self-learning. And then so it can actually teach itself, it can actually code itself to become better and faster itself. Right? And that's where the race is that whoever comes up with that first, because you cannot catch up anymore. And it's all compute constrained at this point, not developer constrained. He's already made that call. He already said that. It's no longer developer constrained. So let me go find that tweet.
A question
about
I have
decentralized.
Question I have while you're looking for that is, where does Dojo fit into this? Is that chip still going to be a widespread thing, an industry leading thing? Are we going to skip past it to Dojo 2? Um, and at some point, will Dojo be that much better than what NVIDIA has, that NVIDIA chips are no longer, the critical thing? Because we haven't heard a whole lot about it,
Yeah, a Dojo.
about Dojo chips. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing I think about Tesla. And so Tesla has a fantastic relationship apparently with Nvidia, and they need to buy Nvidia's chips. What they do, but the smart thing that Tesla's done, Elon, is that he'd already built the Dojo chip, which is equivalent or even more designed specifically for vision AI. And so now that money that they need will be put into creating those chips too. So Nvidia itself is going to be very successful, but Tesla needs to buy this. So yeah, let me find that thing about yeah, here it is. So let me just cut and paste this in here. Yeah, so sorry about this, guys.
And in the comments, let us know, who do you think would be the right board member to add to address the AI blind spot that Tesla and other companies have generally?
Okay, can you see the screen?
I can. Yep.
Okay. So this is Andrei Karpathy saying that he's basically saying here, oh my God, what happened to my screen? I'm sorry, guys. Okay, there we go. He's saying, thinking a lot about centralization and decentralization these days. This is a post he did yesterday. Yesterday. Thinking a lot about centralization and decentralization these days. And Elon Musk says, same. Okay. And by the way, yesterday, Elon Musk actually refollowed Andre.
Oh.
So Andre Karpathy obviously was working for Tesla for many years. He was the key developer that created FSD, full self-driving. Then he left to rejoin OpenAI in January of last year. And he did that because he knew that ChatGPT was well developed, and this is the space he wants to be part of. And so he joined OpenAI. When that happened, I think Elon felt that that was a stab in his back. He unfollowed Andre. They haven't spoken maybe. But now with all the debacle that's happening this weekend with OpenAI, he probably reached out, said, hey, maybe come back. One thing about Elon is that, what happened with PayPal, the PayPal mafia, he felt that they basically ousted him and he stabbed in the back. He said in the book that, hey, never burn your bridges. And he established good relationship with people that he might have spent all his life hating. Now he refollowed Andre. So is it possible that Andre might come back? Whatever. And then so that comment about centralization, decentralization, I think it's got something to do with the FSD, the power of the chips that's sitting in all of our cars, giving them extra power that they need. Or I don't know, who knows? It could mean a lot.
Well, and Andre would be a very good fit for, that board position, perhaps, or even a role, because Andre is looking for the next thing that really stirs his cocoa. And I could see XAI being that, because that is a massive challenge with potentially huge rewards for getting it done in the first place. And he is the kind of smart I think you would probably want on a team like that.
Oh, he had them and then he left. And so why did he leave? Is because he felt that FSD, right, real world AI, is well on its way. He felt that it was already solved. But more importantly, he thought that the power of the artificial intelligence heading to AGI is much more impactful, or something he wants to be part of. And so, what do you think? I mean, tell me the difference you think between real world AI, vision based AI, and AGI. And can you get to AGI? So the big debate apparently is, can you get to AGI without physical embodiment? Without a car having vision interacting with the world, or a robot interacting with the world. So apparently half scientists believe that you need physical embodiment before you get AGI, and half believe that you don't. You can just use videos on YouTube, it can learn on its own, and it can kind of just figure things out by itself.
So my first instinct would be to say, no, you're right. It does need a body so that it can interact, whether that's a physical bot or just some kind of like meat space interface. But then on the other hand, it's done absolutely everything. And how would it know it's not in the real world? How would it know it's not the closing scenes of Johnny Mnemonic when we find out that the robot believes it's now in charge of the world when it's still in a sandbox? So I don't know. I think the difference between what it could accomplish either way would be small enough that humans might not be able to perceive the benefit
That's a
of
good
it
point.
of it having gone out into the world. Some good
But so the good
Johnny
news is,
Mnemonic deep cuts for the fans out there.
yeah. So good news is Tesla's doing it all, and it's the only company doing it all. So here's the thing that I, as a Tesla shareholder, that I'm really excited about is that I think that that Tesla will be seen as an AI company faster if they announce that they are now going to get shares. Tesla shareholders are going to get a share of XAI. That will be, so we've been asking this question for so long. Why is Tesla not yet seen as an AI company, right? It's a car company. Okay, yes, it's an energy company. That's where we're at today. And
Well, the
then
same
yes,
reason, yeah. It's not
FSD
seen
is
as
coming
all the other things that it is. It's not seen as a software company, which it is, or any of the many, many other things. Uh, the market doesn't get it until the revenue is there.
until the revenue's there. Yeah. But I'm saying that if they partner with XAI, the story might be more formed and people might better understand what the plan is for Tesla ongoing. Hey, Hans, how are you doing? So I know that you've been following this story closely. We've kind of just reported about Elon's tweet this morning that Elon said that he's going to discuss with the Tesla board whether or not Tesla shareholders should have a piece of XAI. You were on a stream with Dave Lee and Farzad
hmm
yesterday. What was the discussion
Yeah,
there?
so that was actually on Monday, and the comments that Dave shared on X yesterday were consistent with the comments that he had actually shared on the stream on Monday, and so those were a continuation. He's also done a couple of other live streams. So this is, a set of ideas that I think is really obvious to a lot of people deeply inside the Tesla community. He's not the only one, or
Of course.
the by any means who's been stewing on this. But yeah, this was just kind of a continuation of that discussion that was partly had on Monday, and then partly emanated from his own live streams. I think it's a very interesting idea, and as we saw with everything that's been going on over at OpenAI, there's a limited number of people who really have all of the pieces necessary. And I think that was one of the big takeaways that we had on Monday, was that Elon is really in a great position.
Yeah.
The other
Very
players
true.
are Google with DeepMind. Anthropic and potentially Amazon have a partnership. We don't really know what's going on with Apple, but based on their culture and product development cycles, they're probably going to do something that's more polished. They're not going to be at the forefront of development. They'll come in and release something that's probably high quality, but not first, whenever they do release it. And then when you look at Google and DeepMind, while DeepMind is operating incredibly well, Google hasn't shipped any good new product anywhere close to first. There's so much politics. George Hotz made a really great comment in his Lex interview where he talks about the fact that Google is default dead and Microsoft is default alive. And that's
Yeah.
just based on the amount of CEO power that, Satya Nadella has what he calls the button. Like, he can do what he needs to do inside of Microsoft, whereas Sundar probably not so much. And, kind of the whole business model of Google over the last 10 years has been suck up as much talent as possible and keep them doing something so that they're not doing something in other places. Um, and, it's hard to pivot that culture on a dime to say, okay, now we are actually going to be innovating and putting out new product and at the forefront of something. And then they also have just a fundamental business model challenge, since all of their revenue is dependent on advertisers, whereas Microsoft, they have a lot of services, a lot of products. They have a very diversified portfolio of income streams. and advertising is really minimal in all of that. And so trying to figure out how an LLM integrates with ads is not something that Microsoft is worried about, but it is something that Google is deeply, deeply worried about, and it just complicates that. So, I think Google's got its challenges. Obviously, I have very little faith in Amazon's ability to get anything done. Apple's not going to be first, and so really, what does that leave? It leaves Microsoft and OpenAI, and it leaves Elon with XAI. And so, if we bring together all of the resources that are available within the Elon sphere, from X to XAI to potential, funding that Elon can pull off of SpaceX, also, and then obviously Tesla, then he's got all the pieces in place. He obviously knows how to recruit talent. And I think it's an obvious move. And if he really wants to help to shepherd humanity into a safe future where AGI is a huge factor, then he needs to be right there neck and neck with OpenAI and Microsoft. And that means that they've got to put the pedal to the metal and keep, what XAI has been doing in developing Grok, and their partnership with X has been, like, the progress is incredible. They've got some really cool stuff going on there, but there's still, this is just the beginning of the race. It's not anywhere near the end. And so there's a long road to hoe here, and we got to get moving.
Okay, well, great conversation there. Thank you for that. I mean, what I've been saying in the earlier part of this show is that this is an AI war. It's only going to be fought by the biggest corporations ever. Microsoft and OpenAI is going to be $50 billion per year. Elon needs to raise 50 billion or more, but they have everything in place, like you were saying. And then just to put this to the bed, I've been having
So
this.
I actually disagree there on the amount of total compute that's necessary. It really depends, because a lot of that compute spend on Microsoft's part is to handle a lot of inference. They're integrating these products into a lot of different things. So there's going to be direct products available from OpenAI, and then there's also the products that are integrated into Office and all of Microsoft software suite. So there's a lot of inference load that's necessary on that because they're already at that scale. XAI doesn't have to have that much infrastructure build out to handle the inference side of things just yet. Now, the training side is a different story. And they need to have all the training hardware that they can available to them as quickly as possible. A lot of the inference side, that'll actually end up being on Twitter. And so he doesn't necessarily have to raise that money within inside of XAI. He can do it in X, because I think that's where the actual service will live.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
one thing I picked up on there, Hans, that was really interesting that I hadn't considered is there's a reason people may not want to work at Google, and that is the famous Google graveyard. I don't know who among us can even name just one product that Google was all in on and then canceled. There's an entire website with hundreds of amazing projects listed, and I think the site's called something like Killed by Google, and the list is absolutely endless. And whether, obviously there's some AI future at all these companies, but if your team is working on a product and you're at XAI, that product is going to be around. It is the absolute golden goose. Where at Google, it's something, well, you know what, we just canceled on that. But it works, but people like it. We don't care. Doesn't matter. There's no logic to what we do except because I said so and money. So
And it's weird because DeepMind is so effective at doing the cutting edge research. A lot of the innovation that then, like the engineering work, happened at OpenAI, but the initial research seeds of that occurred inside of DeepMind. And so, like, DeepMind is at the very forefront of the research along with OpenAI, and now hopefully XAI as well. But that, like, the ability of whatever DeepMind is doing to actually translate into product is just completely non-existent.
No, so my understanding is this. So Google is trapped in this traditional disruptive legacy challenge.
Innovator's dilemma.
innovative. I've been having this debate with a friend of mine. I think Google is dead. Like you said, default dead. Why? Because they make all their money in search ads. They developed DeepMind. Apparently, DeepMind was ahead of OpenAI, but they chose not to release it. Now they said because I want to make sure it's aligned and safety. But the reality is they're trying to figure out how, if I release DeepMind, where you're talking to a chat GPT, chat AI, how's that going to generate you revenue? In fact, they're probably seeing reduction in searches. I certainly don't search on Google as much as I used to. I just go to OpenAI and ask that question. And now that you can do voice, you can go back and forth. Maybe this can be a reduction Google ads. And so they need to figure out, how do I make money on a chat GPT model? And then what happens when I disrupt? I basically cannibalize my own advertising. So they're in trouble. They're going to see reduction in revenue in advertising.
The answer, I think, is right in front of you. You said, what will we do when that is replaced? And ChatGPT would remind you that the cool, refreshing taste of Mountain Dew is what would really solve things today.
That won't happen, right? Just like, yeah, it's weird.
Well, would you, from Bard or something like that, could you get sponsored answers? I think you know, what is the best restaurant in town? Well, I can tell you one that advertises. I don't know how you note that in a way that's not distracting, because you know how ads are online. Then, they like to put a little tiny word that says
but a company like Grok, who's not going to try to advertise to you, then they're going to differentiate and people will gravitate to use that product. So they're in trouble. Yeah.
And then how do you monetize?
Well, how do you monetize? When you create the AGI that can replace your doctor, and now you're going to pay $100 a month so to have access to this doctor that's going to give you advice for anything that is up to, like just 1,000 times better than any other doctor, as fast as you can and cheaper. You would do that. Then you need a lawyer. You'll pay another $100 a month to have access to a lawyer to answer any question. Then you'll
I just want to say that
job in the world.
Only a Harvard HBS grad could have his head so far up his butt that he would be worried about hanging on to advertiser dollars at the expense of having actual artificial intelligence that you could build new businesses around.
And by the way, Larry Summers is now the board member of OpenAI, talking about Harvard business grads. But apparently, he's a good choice. I don't know yet. But so you don't think, I absolutely think Elon's going to raise $50 billion. I mean, this is a race for compute. You need to have as much supercomputer power you have, NVIDIA chips, Dojo chips, data centers. I'm even wondering, is Tesla going to partner with Oracle? He's best buds with Larry Ellison. He needs all the friends he needs at this point, or it's just not even, I don't know much about Oracle and what they actually have under the hoods there.
Yeah, I don't either. It's interesting. I mean, I think that there's going to be, I agree that Elon's going to definitely be raising money. He's going to be bringing in people. I think one of the things that the whole saga over the last week has really shown is everyone realizes, hey, there's an opportunity here, and hey, like OpenAI is out ahead and there's an opportunity here, and they thought that they might be able to catch up. And now with the reconsolidation of OpenAI, if all that talent stays, and if basically everything goes back to pre-Friday business as usual within side of Microsoft, then everyone's going to be like, okay, well, what we were hoping for didn't come to fruition. We need to be exploring other options aggressively. And so I do think that Elon will be highly motivated to accelerate, but that is also a cultural zeitgeist that now exists in the Valley, that people recognize both the urgency of the situation and the opportunity. And so I think that, the ability for him to raise money will be high. He's got all the relationships. He's got the executional track record. Grok has viable product. Like, it ticks all the boxes. And so there definitely will be, a major build. I just don't think that, I think that Elon can do with $15 billion as much or more than Microsoft can do with $50 billion on infrastructure. But he's absolutely going to raise a ton of money. And that also, comes back to with Tesla. Does Tesla actually have to be the one to provide? I don't think, unless Tesla just accelerates even more their orders from NVIDIA, because I don't think that Dojo's, Dojo V2 chip manufacturing can scale any faster than it's scaling. Like, it is already maxed out. They're going as fast as they can with that, and it will be able to contribute as much as it can possibly contribute as soon as it can possibly contribute. But there's a huge gap that NVIDIA still has to fill for a long time. And I don't think that, honestly, Dojo V2 is ever going to outcompete NVIDIA like for like. In any meaningful way, like maybe marginally, just like we haven't seen the 4680s are not outcompeting CATL, they're not outcompeting BYD yet. It's going to be a long, long time, if ever, before Dojo is going to be able to outcompete NVIDIA GPUs in the exact same way for the exact same reason. Jensen is highly, highly competent. NVIDIA is firing on all cylinders. They really have things in the bag for the near term future. The only variable that I see in all of that is if George Hotz can really get TinyGrad to scale and have a meaningful competitor to PyTorch that actually compiles down to specific hardware, and allows people to achieve similar performance and have similar ML stack capability to CUDA on something, because CUDA is the real. I mean, the hardware that NVIDIA has is great, but I mean, CUDA is one of the biggest bottlenecks preventing AI research from being able to take place on anything besides NVIDIA hardware. And so if TinyGrad can, break the stranglehold that CUDA has, then that opens up a lot more flexibility for Intel or AMD GPUs, or even, moving down, like what Qualcomm is doing with Snapdragon is incredibly impressive as well. I mean, they're going head to head with the M chips from Apple on the inference side. TinyGrad is the best thing that I see as far as enabling a proliferation of hardware that can all support this.
So I have a
Elon
question for
did.
you. This is this is from the chat. How much cheaper do we think Dojo chips would be than the 40,000 they're paying for each of those NVIDIA, you know, systems? Is it is it really that the marginal cost once developed is low enough that if they can start producing Dojo at scale, that it would just no longer make sense to buy NVIDIA chips, or will there be some huge savings there, do we think?
It depends on where the bottleneck is. If Elon is right, he thinks that the chip shortage will actually be broken in roughly a year, and that will be moved over to a power shortage.
Exactly. That's what I was
If
going to
that is
say.
the case, then I'm assuming part of the reason that he says that, at least for Tesla, is because that's kind of when they expect Dojo to reach manufacturing volume. And so that would imply that, yes, Dojo will eliminate their need to continue buying NVIDIA GPUs at that point in time. But they're going to definitely continue to ramp that as fast as possible between now and then.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is this, that they will continue to buy NVIDIA, but there's going to be lots of other options. Dojo himself is going to do it, and he did say at some point in the future, it's going to be energy constrained, not GPU constrained, but that's going to be a little bit in the future, and that's yet another reason why Tesla is well positioned with their batteries and even solar panels. But I was going to say to you that you said a little bit earlier that things are back to what it was before with OpenAI. It's not. OpenAI is still a intact entity, but now it's now run, and the board is now run for these X accelerators, right? These accelerators, not the doomers. And so now they're just going to go full force as fast as they can to build AGI with less restriction to try to slow them down, to try to get alignment in place. So I'm just going to quickly update people who just tuned in and what's happening. But basically, this morning we had Elon Musk announcing that that Elon Musk announced this morning that there's going to be that he's going to ask the board whether or not they can Tesla shareholders can get a piece of XAI. So here's what happened. 3 days ago, Elon tweeted this out, that people who own X, which is the X Twitter, those investors will own 25% of XAI. This is just a few days ago. Then Dave Lee kind of asked the question, hey, I'd like to see a partnership between Tesla and xAI. And then he gave the option that maybe Tesla gives money to xAI as well as Dojo services. xAI gives Tesla equity and access to Grok AI going forward. Jason says, I'm 100% behind this. Many Tesla retail investors would love to have some skin in the game with xAI. I hope Elon considers this. And then this morning, Elon replied to Jason saying, we'll discuss with the Tesla board. So this idea that Tesla, X, and xAI are all going to own a piece of each other and they're all going to work together is so obvious. And it makes so much sense. What they haven't done and we're waiting for is actual ownership exchanges like this, but also some clear communication to us of what exactly, where's the money flowing, right? So either Tesla has to pay money to xAI so that they can have access to Grok, or it could be the other way around, which is xAI raises all this money and pays $50 billion per year to Tesla to run the Dojo supercomputers and to manage that. Dojo as a service, that's a first example of that. So, it'd be interesting. What do you think, Hans and Brian? What do you guys think of what's the most logical way that this transaction will work?
I don't have a good idea on that because the whole space is difficult to wrap your head around. Humans are not, this is not something that is instinctive to us to understand. It's a little weird, like orbital mechanics. But I would say that there are obvious ways that the companies tie together. I think if Tesla brought in, I hope not a lot of money, because I believe they need that war chest for a variety of reasons, including factories, which I know Alexandra yesterday had said that she feels that the factory expansions are a bit on hold. I personally disagree with that, but if they give out any money at all, I think it would need to be limited. What they really give is the data, the real world camera, physics data, and also there is kind of an obligation there because so much of Tesla's CEO has given up his time to these other ventures. And I feel like the Tesla investors in some way need a little bit back as compensation for losing that. That's my thought.
Yeah, I agree with Brian on that. And one of the points that I did love that you touched on here, and I know that you had spoken about earlier before I hopped on, was just the incredible data trove that Tesla has. That's something that Microsoft can't compete with. None of the other AI players have that ability, and especially when you factor in the DeepMind release of GraphCast here just recently, which actually outcompetes the best deterministic math weather forecasting models that we have. It very, very intensive to train, but then very, very resource not intensive to run on inference, and can produce consistently better forecasts than we've ever been able to produce before, which is an incredible, it has incredible implications, because anyone who is deep into engineering, you understand that finite element analysis and computational fluid dynamics, so that's FEA and CFD, that's basically how all of engineering research is done these days. And product development, any sort of physical product has to go through, if it's going to be developed in any at large scale, or have much investment go into it, there are FEA and CFD processes that all of those things have to go through. And I think that the graph neural networks, the GNNs that DeepMind used to achieve GraphCast, basically put the entire physics simulation field on notice that neural nets are coming to eat physics simulation. And so and it's doing that based on lots and lots of real world data once again. And so Tesla being able to provide real world data to xAI for them to take because GN or the GraphCast was open sourced by DeepMind to the whole world, and this revolution into GNNs is now something that xAI can go and run with. I think that xAI has a lot more greenfield space in front of them. This is very much in the realm of real world AI mission that is part of Tesla's ethos, that I think that fits very well with XAI, and XAI fits very well with that. So I think there's a very positive symbiotic relationship where that X can, by giving that data to XAI, or if Tesla can give that data to XAI, but in return get high quality simulation back from XAI based on their neural net research, that accelerates Tesla's ability to do engineering inside the company, and then also very, very applicable to the Optimus bot is the one of the penultimate AI use cases that you can have for it to not only be able to, talk to you just like uh, a character from who's the robot, Rosie the robot, from the Jetsons, to have a personality and intelligence, and to be able to interact with you in the way that another person would be able to interact with you, and go off and give it a task and have it to, of its own agency, figure out exactly how to do all those things. um that intelligence piece and the reasoning piece is a huge part of what is necessary there, and that's something that we have not yet seen inside of Tesla, and that's something that XAI is actively working on. And so being able to actually import that from XAI to Tesla is huge. And I think Tesla investors who understand AI, there's going to be a lot of Tesla investors who are not going to be happy about this. In fact, they're going to scream and pitch a fit, and there's going to be all kinds of accusations, and just like with Solar City as well. But um, I think that whatever recommendation the board gives based on the amount of insider ownership and retail ownership of Tesla, I think that if anything were to go to a shareholder vote, I think that shareholder vote would pass. And I think that relationship between Tesla and XAI would be ratified.
And a
Okay.
question I would have is, do you think, well, I was just going to ask, could shareholders vote quickly enough to make a move like that? Because time is of the essence, and I don't think there's time.
I think that Elon can probably raise whatever resources he needs to outside of Tesla, like in the interim, to ensure that acceleration is happening as rapidly as necessary. It may be that, this takes a little while to get hammered out.
So, okay, let me wrap some things up here because this is all coming together very nicely, right? I really don't like it when somebody says that Elon's playing 7D chess, 4D chess, and all that. But sometimes it really does appear that he has been. So, just this morning, somebody tweeted out, "Data is the new oil," and
Oh, for
Elon
sure.
replied to that, and he said it's true. So, what you were saying, Hans, and people, I don't know if they fully understand this, but X, which is Twitter, is the only massive amount of real-time data. So there's others that says no, but Facebook and Google and all these guys, they have massive more data. They do. They absolutely have 1,000 times more data because there's the users for X is now 350 million, not billions. But it's real-time data. Like if you needed to, like you ask Grok a question, it will answer within the hour of what happened, right? Who's the new CEO? Like this moment of OpenAI, they know the answer. But if you ask that to any other chat GPT, they can't do it. So, access to X turned out to be brilliant, right? That's critical. And the other thing he said, as we talked about in the show so far, is that right now is GPU constrained. But soon it's going to be energy constrained because these data centers, I think he already said, right? You will know which data centers are running the AI because they're going to be lit up like a city and you can see it from space. That's how much electricity that these things will need. Well, who's going to be able to have, at some point, it's going to be the energy is going to be the new oil. And who's going to provide that? And it's going to be Tesla because they have the solar, they're going to have the batteries, they're going to be able to have the most ability to power this all. So it's all coming together.
And that is one of the.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's one of the benefits of Dojo is if they can get those V2 chips going, that because at the hardware level, Dojo is optimized for doing this advanced matrix multiplication that is kind of the base layer of machine learning and artificial intelligence, it will actually use less electricity to accomplish the same. There's a lot of inefficiency that's built
Yeah.
into it, an NVIDIA GPU, because they make it much more a general platform that can handle a lot different types of use cases.
Right.
And so you can, that's one of the advantages of Dojo, but it's also one of the core focuses of XAI is they've said we're optimizing for useful compute per watt, and that is exactly
Yeah.
why. And so they're thinking about this now. They've been thinking about this, and this is the direction that they're going. So if we do end up in a world where electricity is the actual resource constraint, then I don't know how much Microsoft and OpenAI have been thinking about this. They certainly have not talked about it openly, whereas we know that Elon has been planning for this future already.
And what I would say to that is, as we move into a renewable future, there will be, the big plan is you have to overbuild. You have to overbuild. There has to be surplus power that can just be curtailed. And instead of curtailing it, let's dump it into compute. Let this be the pressure release valve for the overproduction, so that, and when there is a time when things are really, when power is really in short supply, great, we just drop down to bare minimum operations on all this compute and leave the bigger questions about the universe for later tonight.
Well, and it can also be a situation where Tesla, besides adding um, compute resources and contributing those to XAI and data, that they can actually prioritize XAI orders for solar and energy storage products to help maintain the availability of power for XAI projects, but also reduce the input cost of the electricity.
Yeah.
I guess, okay, I know we're getting a little crazy here because my mind is spinning. I mean, what I'm thinking about is that, okay, Tesla seems to have everything in place, as we talked about, right? They've got this Dojo supercomputer, they have real world AI, they have real time X data that's flowing in. You've got you got the FSD cars out there. We've got the talent. All the smartest people want to work for now, not only Tesla, but also XAI and even X. I guess my concern is that if OpenAI, this is a war. This is a friggin' war. Microsoft and XAI, unfortunately, are at battles with Elon. And I really hope that Elon could somehow reestablish his relation with Sam Altman. But I don't, everybody I've asked said that that's just not going to ever happen. But if it's a war, and if OpenAI is just a slightly ahead, okay, their ability to create an artificial general intelligence, even if it's not yet AGI, but it's just smarter than anything else anybody does, could that thing teach itself to be able to counter anything that Tesla's doing with the data is the new oil or the energy issues? Could it figure out a solution to this, or even harm Tesla's ability to approach this? Yeah, this is getting crazy talk at this point. So yeah, we don't have to spend a lot of time on that.
Well, I would
Yeah, I
I
mean,
would say it can do anything. We just don't know what it will do.
it's the singularity. And yeah, it's like what that means is that the ability for predictions to hold any sort of credence approaches zero. So yeah, have no idea how that will. I mean, many people have talked about this. Max Tegmark's book is a good one. That Life 3.0. This is just it's crazy. We don't really have a good ability to understand how things are going to change. The one point that I strongly advocate for is that decentralization of the power of AGI, it needs to be a maximally pursued effort.
It's too late,
And
Hans.
I
That's
know
my
that's
It's
what
too late
scares
because
me.
what happened this weekend with OpenAI flipping from a nonprofit to possibly, we'll see how they actually structure it, but exactly what happened. The doomers were beaten. And so now you have the accelerators in charge, and they're going to fill it with accelerator board members. Then you got the Microsoft completely puppeteering everything now. You know, It's too
Yeah,
late. This is not going to be
it's
decentralized
definitely
anymore.
a huge move towards centralization and away from decentralization. So, and on that front, it may be good for, because in this race, you've got OpenAI in the Apple position, and you've got XAI kind of in the Google position. It may be very beneficial for XAI to really push forward on the open source side and
Yeah,
really collaborate with all the other
because money.
players like
Yeah,
Anthropic,
yeah,
like
go
Tiny
ahead.
Grad or Tiny Corp, and even with potentially DeepMind at Google, like all of the other players kind of need to unite in a decentralized way in order to at least keep like multipolar game theory is much more attractive in this situation than something that is
I don't know
unipolar.
if you joined, Hans, when earlier in this stream, I posted a tweet by Elon, first by Andre Karpathy, where he said,
Yeah.
I've been thinking very much about centralized versus decentralized. And then Elon replied saying, same. That's
Yeah,
this
I
morning.
really, really hope that Andre decides that, his radioactive emoji is him
Yeah.
saying, "Okay, this place is crazy." I was very, very concerned. I don't know what happened inside of OpenAI. Like, there's still a lot of opaqueness to that. But one of the things from outside that really, really concerns me is 97% plus of his team member going against the board, and basically like it's a essentially a 100% mutiny from the team. That amount of ideological consistency means that dissenting opinions are not allowed. It really implies that any non-SAM team members have been that there was a significant majority that was achieved before any of this happened, that they had already purged out any people who were interested in having the nonprofit organizational structure be really responsible for this. That all of those, that any balance of power between those competing sets of ideas had already been broken. And then through the course of the last week, maybe you started out as 60-40 or 70-30, whatever it was, the majority was so strong that they were basically able to bully any other opinions into complete oblivion, and now you just have
Yeah.
uniformity. It's a Borg collective over there, and that scares me as the company that is at the forefront of developing AI right now.
And accelerating as fast as possible without any more handcuffs and have all the money in the world. So this, at one point we thought that they were going to break up and everybody was saying that's great. All these employees will be snapped up by many companies. That's not the case. They kept them together.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I
it's going
mean,
to
And
we'll
be,
we've never
see.
seen anything like that before. There's never, in the early days of tech, you would see employees for the first time actually taking power back from the corporate guys and saying, I will go to another company and all of my team will, like you were saying, scatter. But this was 90% of the company
united.
saying
Yep.
you got nothing. We got all the power.
Okay, so I just want to address this. Somebody said that you guys are jumping to conclusions, misleading clickbait thumbnails too. You guys are better than this. No, we're not jumping to conclusions. This is happening. It's real. So basically, 3 days ago, Elon said that X investors will own 25% of XAI. There was a conversation between Dave saying, hey, let's have a partnership between Tesla and XAI. And then Elon replied this morning saying, yeah, we're going to discuss with the Tesla board. This is Tesla shareholders having access to XAI. And what I've been saying all this time was that as soon as he tweeted out that X investors will get share ownership of XAI, we already knew at that point that Tesla will get it too, but he can't just unilaterally send out a tweet saying this is happening. He needs to get Tesla board approval. So there's nothing clickbaity about saying Tesla shareholders to get shares of XAI question mark, because I probably should have removed the question mark. It is going to happen at this point. I mean, it's just there's
And,
no
and a,
major jump to conclusion here.
a point of clarification on what clickbait is and isn't. Just because a headline is sexy doesn't mean it's clickbait. Clickbait has to rise to the level of dishonesty. And I've made videos before where my thumbnail is something very true and accurate and boring and no one clicks it. And then I make it something a little more sensational or put a joke in it. And all of a sudden the video takes off. And then I get people saying, that's clickbait. Where's the lie? It's still there. It's still
Yeah.
true. That's not what clickbait is. Don't punish those of us who are not engaging in it by
If you don't deliver,
misunderstanding.
and a conversation today is exactly whether or not Tesla shareholders should get shares of XAI isn't going to happen, and it's happening. I mean, they have to. That's the whole point. They have to. Maybe not. If not shareholders, there has to be some sort of agreement between the two. I also predict that Elon's going to get. You might have seen this thing where Omar sent a tweet out saying that we should renegotiate Elon's compensation package. This is, we're now at the thick of, like I've been saying all show, this is the AI wars between 2 or 3 massive organizations that are the cusp. And so if you don't step up and either combine all the resources you have, XAI, Tesla, even more, maybe Oracle and others, with a ton of money so that you can achieve everything you need to do that now. And so he needs to get his kind of new marching orders for how does all these organizations, this Tesla owned Elon economy, become the leader for AGI. Because if it doesn't, I mean, we're going to be successful, the company will succeed, but it's just not it won't be like whoever controls AGI could control the world basically.
Yeah. And it's, like you were saying with the singularity, whatever is beyond the event horizon, I am not able to observe from here.
Yep.
Oh my God. So what happens now, right? So that's what you were saying, right? So he's going to discuss this with the board. You're saying, how long does it take? When is the board meeting going to happen? But regardless, he's making maneuvers behind the scenes, and that we know. It's just I was hoping that with the debacle that happened this weekend with XAI, that somehow Tesla and Elon would have come out of it with something, and I'm not sure that that's what happened at all.
Yeah. Yep. What a great
I would say, yeah,
conversation.
maybe not in resources. We'll see on personnel. I think that there may be more personnel that leave in the next month to 2 months than it looks like right now. One of the things that I haven't been able to find is that actual list of who are all the employees. Like, I really want to know, did Andre sign the
you
letter
you
or
could
not?
you could look at X and you can see the whole list of all of them saying OpenAI is nothing without its employees, and they all said the
Mhm.
exact same sentence. I know it's
And
not
Andre,
770.
yeah, Andre didn't tweet that out, interestingly, as far
I
as
didn't
I saw.
notice, but Ilya did.
Mhm.
He flipped at that point, right? It's just and so now Elon has a very good relationship with Ilya Sutskever. He was the one that recruited him into OpenAI when Elon founded OpenAI. And so when Ilya was the one that said you got to if you prioritize intelligence over other human qualities, and Elon kind of replied to that tweet, that's the concern, is that now it's all about AGI and no restrictions for it and some safety of humanity. So
I don't
what's
know,
Elon
man.
to do? Yeah, so what you're saying though is that they may not need to raise as much money. Okay, and
Mhm.
you gave very good examples of why that is, but I still believe that they will need to.
Oh, definitely billions and billions of dollars. And I mean, maybe he needs to raise 30 billion in order to
Yeah,
compete with Microsoft's 50 billion. It's going to be a lot of money. Um, and like I said, I guess earlier, that comes back to one of the things that I think Elon walks away from with this is the clarity of the overall landscape of AI and the necessity of that move, and a pool of potential investors that are also similarly motivated.
Well, and I think right now there's a real insatiable appetite for the next disruptive technology for people to put their money into. There's been a lot of money that has fled certain sectors. Certainly, if you're trying to raise money for an auto company right now, you are not going to have a very easy road. And that's true of a lot of different things. But I see a lot of money sitting on the sidelines. And I think there's just an appetite here.
And I also think that, voice and also visuals are the next platform shift, that interface method is kind of where everything is going. I think that's kind of signaled by that little AI pin company that supposedly Sam Altman owns 90% of. But just seeing what was released at Demo Day by OpenAI, what seems like forever ago now, was just very the tight integration, and even the fact that they shipped voice to users of free ChatGPT app, that there's going to be so many new ways to interact with technology, whether it's your smartphone, whether it's your computer, whether it's through your AirPods or your earbuds or whatever it is. The natural language, just like quite a while back, Andre had said that English language is the hottest new programming language. I mean, it's the hottest new interface method between humans, and it is the new human computer machine interface.
So this is Pin AI, and I think you told me that Sam Altman of OpenAI owns a big majority of this. And one of the reasons why there was a cool, a weird thing that happened with OpenAI was because he is still very much launching
Yeah,
big companies like
humane.
this. And so this company, that thing is chat, like a GPT inside the pin, and you can just use your voice. You can display things on your palm. Who knows if it's going to be successful, but it's this idea that you will have AI accessible to you at any moment, at any time. You pin it and you could talk to it, just like, what is it, Star Trek, right? You press your badge and you could talk to the computer. And so this is the next move, that if Elon is not thinking this way, I'm sure he is. I'm not saying he isn't. I'm just saying, boy, he needs to show what he's doing with that, because they need to get ahead of that. This is a war, and that's going to be the thing that, it's a user interface that spreads the access to the GPT and gather information too, because it's got a camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that projector setup adds a level of display that never occurred to me, even though I've seen demos of integrated systems like that going back years, where you could draw in the air and it would show you things on the wall. But that's just we've got some smart people working on problems we didn't know we even had.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good point here from Steve. He's saying that ChatGPT could cost $700,000 per day to operate, because it's true, right? Every single query is 20 cents or something like that. So that's why you need money. This is a war of money, not just building
Yeah.
out the data centers, right?
And does that 20 cents include everything, or is that just power?
The query.
Yes. Right. But does that include employee wages and rent and?
No, my understanding was it was just truly the compute power
Wow.
that it required to serve it up.
The marginal cost on each query.
Mm-hmm.
That's expensive.
Right. And so who's now the business model of charging $20 a month is it's great. It's going to happen. And so Tesla's approach, Elon's approach, is to use X. As, I'm a premium plus subscriber, so are you. How much is it, guys? How much do we have to pay for that? I can't remember now.
I don't know. 8, 11, something like that.
I think $22 for a premium plus on the iPhone store. I think it's less than that on, if you do
18
it through web.
Yeah. So that's how we access Grok. And then Tesla will pay xAI for Grok access too, because we're going to use it in our cars. We'll use it in the bots. But that's brilliant. So he has his business model of how you have access to Grok too. So that's the business model works. You're charging consumers for a service, instead of advertisement. And I think that that's going to work. There's going to be enough money. And I'm right. So right now, I think ChatGPT only makes like a couple billion a year or something like that from this. Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
but it's going to be a positive thing. I mean, there's no doubt at this point. It's a brilliant business model. It's just a matter of like, so Tesla has, I'm just saying, as we repeat everything, for what Tesla has, what Elon has created, has all the pieces. No one has all these pieces together in one place or three places that he, co-owned. That's what I'm saying. It's just, they have to be all co-owned with each other.
The complexity of that business model is something that I think is somewhat of a concern, because it is kind of, it has elements that are similar to the relationship between OpenAI and Microsoft, that kind of, like, it's that innovation on the business model that Jason and David Sachs were talking about, that kind of created some of the opportunity for all the shenanigans that we witnessed. That there is complexity in, managing a relationship between Tesla and X, or Tesla and XAI, and then X and XAI, and all of these different entities kind of have their own competing and somewhat aligned business interests. So hopefully, and I'm sure that that's part of the thought process that Elon is talking about when he and Andre are thinking heavily about centralization versus decentralization, that these competing sets of interests between entities and organizational structures, and who has power, and because on the one hand, while, like, it's good if XAI is able to compete against Microsoft and OpenAI for that race in AGI, but if XAI actually passes and Elon is basically in sole effective control of that, basically we've traded Sam for Elon. And yes, I trust Elon, but it's still the same centralization of power dynamic that is scary. So that's one of the things I'm going to be watching closely, is to see what do they do as far as governance, what do they do to try and that's one of the reasons, like I said earlier, that I really want to see a very tight collaboration between them and lots of other players, because I think that helps to ease that concern.
If there's a jujitsu move that Elon could do, that by partnering with multiple organizations, that and there's a way to do that, right? That it creates more revenue, creates more, money is what's really needed here. Then he'll do that. But if he can't do that, then he needs it's a war between three different massive organizations with the most money, and it's over. This idea of open AI is no longer open. This idea of decentralizing is no longer the case. You need to race. It's a race. So
Great
what a
stuff,
world we
say.
live in. Yeah, it's exciting. But it's, we are Tesla shareholders, and now that we know that, he said he's going to discuss it with the Tesla board, that makes me very happy. I really am. I think that very, very soon, we are going to be seen as an AI company. Tesla will be seen as an AI more than an auto company. And I agree with you, Brian, that it needs to be revenue. I mean, that's certainly why NVIDIA gets the pop it has with its shares. But at the end of the day, even OpenAI doesn't have its revenue, and it's it's everybody realizes it's going to be probably the most largest company in the world at some point. So,
all very interesting stuff.
I don't think it will be viewed as an AI company until we have a lot of turnover in the ownership, just because the institutional ownership that does exist inside of Tesla, they own it because they think it's an auto company, and their perspective and view on the world is that very conservative. So I think this is kind of the war, that basically the majority of retail shareholders do view it already as an AI company, and the majority of institutional holders view it as an auto company. And so that ownership base dynamic is something that will have to shift in order for that narrative to really, really break out.
Yeah, hopefully it works out too. Thank you, Hans, for joining us. And Brian and I do this co-stream every week. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Great conversation, and give us some more information. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.